Hi everyone, welcome back to the next diecast. In today's video, I'll be showing you and reviewing this 1/18 scale 1989 Mercedes-Benz 500 SL made by Maisto. I got this model off of eBay for $31 in total. Maisto no longer makes this particular model, but a lot of them are available on eBay. You can find them for anywhere for $10 for a loose out of the box one with maybe some parts that are missing, to mint in box versions for between $25 and $45 thereabouts, depending on the age of the model, the color, and its overall condition. So Maisto produced this particular model from around 1990 until around 2005 or so. This was actually one of the first 1/18 scale models that Maisto made. They began making 1/18 scale models back in 1990 when they released this 500 SL along with the Ferrari 348 TS, the BMW 850i, and I think the original Lamborghini Diablo too. So keeping that in mind, some of the details and the overall quality of this model aren't going to be up to par for current models that Maisto is currently making. But for a model that was made in the early 1990s, I think its details overall are good for the most part. My particular model was, I think, made around 1994 or so. And the best way to tell is by looking at the copyright date on the bottom of the box. And often on the flap, like when you open up the side of the box, on the flap, it'll say a date on there. I believe that's the date that the model was usually packaged or something like that. But that's how I usually narrow down when my models were made. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the details of the model here. We'll start up here with the front. I think Maisto did a decent job with the overall shape of this car. 1989 was actually the first year of this generation, the R129 generation. But I think Maisto did an overall decent job with the shape and everything. The front could use a little bit better sculpting, I think, overall. But, from a far distance, I think, it's definitely recognizable as the R129 SL. But we'll take a look first at the headlights here. Maisto, I think, did a good job with these headlights for the most part. These turn signals I don't think should be this large, but at least they are separately cast pieces. You'll see that there is kind of a peg in the middle of each of these headlights, but it is kind of hard to see. And there is kind of a gap, a sizable gap between the headlight lenses and the metal bodywork. Because this is a black car, it's kind of hard to actually see it unless you look at it like really, really close. They do a nice job of the center grille here. Kind of has a nice like metal look to it, and it is a fully see-through grille. And they do a nice job with that Mercedes-Benz badge in the center too. And up on the hood there, you have that second 3-pointed star badge as well. I believe this is actually, this is actually painted on, which is nice to see. Taking a look on the lower portion here, you'll see that there are separately cast fog lights down here. And this bumper is actually a separate plastic piece. From 1989 until 1994, the SL-Class convertibles had this sort of lower cladding going on where you had kind of two different like a paint color. So in the case of this black version, it has kind of like the gunmetal lower portion. Maisto also has a light blue version with sort of a darker blue lower portion, and kind of like a burgundy version with a gray lower portion too. In 94, Mercedes updated this particular car, so the whole body was just like the same color. And they also changed the wheel choices too. So just something to note. But this is pretty much based off the 89 to a 94 version of this specific car. So yeah, the plastic is actually well done too. It does have a nice kind of like metallic paint finish to it. I'm pretty sure on the real car it would actually be metal like all across the board here. But on the model, they're actually just separate plastic pieces. Not a big deal, because the two-color look is actually proper to the car, so I will give them that. Massive panel gaps for these doors here. You can see right into the interior, which is really strange. Same goes for this side, too, although it's not as bad. If Maisto were to re-release this model today, you would definitely not see that. The panel gaps would be completely flush, but again, this model first came out in the late 1980s, early 1990s, so you're going to see some quality issues like that. But wow, it is very glaring from certain angles, like this angle here. So that's a little bit unfortunate. But I mean, from here, you can't really see it all that well, I suppose. Taking a look at the wheels, the wheel detail and tire detail does make up for these really weird, huge gaps. Maisto does properly replicate these rims that you would see on the real car, along with these tires too. These are Dunlop tires. maybe a tad bit too large, but at least they're well fitting with like the rim and everything, and they do have the branding on them. You do have full steering with this model, which is actually good steering too, and suspension as well. Of course, you have kind of that loud suspension up in the front. A lot of these older Maisto models had that problem, but not a big deal. At least you have the suspension on there to begin with. Very sturdy mirrors, so that's nice to see. I just can't unsee that giant gap there. It's but again, this model's from like the early 90s, so you're gonna have stuff like that going on with it. Taking a look at the back, decent job with these taillights back here. They are the right shape for the most part, it looks like. There is a peg in each one that's kind of glaring, but I guess they have to hold the taillights in like some way. You do have the nice badging back here. You have the Mercedes-Benz badge and the 500 SL badge back here too. And the paint quality on this model is pretty good for the most part. You have kind of a nice like metallic finish to it. It's actually nice and smooth throughout. There is some orange peel here and there, but it's actually very minor compared to other 1990s models that Maisto has made. So that's good to see. And because this is a black car, a lot of defects are going to be kind of hidden if you have the car displayed in certain lighting. But if you opt for like a lighter paint color, like Maisto did make this in white and light blue and like a light silver, you will kind of see defects a little bit more clearly, unfortunately. But they'll vary from model to model. In terms of features on this model, you actually have like a fair bit of working features on here, which is actually very cool to see. You have the working front wiper, which moves up and down like so. You have an adjustable roll bar, which you can lift up like this. Adjustable seat backs that actually fold completely down, or not completely down, but they fold down for the most part. So you can adjust those like so. That way they kind of fit with the roll bar up. Yeah, they do kind of click a lot, but at least you have the folding seats. So you can lift up the roll bar like that. Adjustable sun visors too. Maisto almost never includes these on their models, so that's really cool to see. And then in the trunk, I guess we'll take a look at the opening features. You have a full-sized spare tire. And you can actually use this as a wheel and tire on the model. It has the right attachment point and everything. So if I somehow ever lost one of these wheels, I could actually use this as a spare wheel and tire, which is very cool. This is actually mounted in the trunk like this. I just had it kind of already loose because it was easier to get out. But if you pop it in place like that, then you have your spare tire back there. And the trunk is decent for the most part. The plastic is a little bit too smooth, and there should not be this gaping hole where like my finger is back here. But I guess they kind of make up for that with the spare tire. And of course, you have the severe underspray down here. The real car would, of course, have some felt going on up there. But again, the model's from like the 1990s. So, but that's really cool to see that sort of spare tire feature. The only other model I can think of that has an actual like usable spare tire and wheel is the Maisto BMW 850i. That also has sort of like the same deal going on. You have the spare tire like in like the trunk, and you can actually take it out and use it as a spare tire and spare wheel. We'll close that up. We'll take a look next at the engine detail of the model. The hood opens up like so. Opens up very wide, which is nice to say. Decent detailing in the engine here. Not the best I've seen, but you do have multiple pieces in here. You have kind of that like molded in fan in the front there. On the main block, you have some nice detailing with these pulleys in the front here, along with those kind of silver features underneath the main block. You have the Mercedes-Benz inscription on either side of this piece here, along with the Mercedes-Benz badge too. Severe underspray going on here. This should actually be fully painted, I'm pretty sure. And the hood falls down because it's a very heavy piece. So, so I'm just going to hold it up with my finger for right now. But yeah, if they had at least painted the metal portions fully black to match the rest of the body, it would have looked like a little bit better. And Revell actually makes a version of, or they used to make a version of this model that had slightly better engine detailing. You had some actual like wires and stuff in there. But Maisto, I think for the most part, did a decent job with the engine here. I just would have liked to see some more paint detailing on these like metal portions here. You do have opening doors on the model as well. They open up like so on these kind of jagged looking dog leg hinges, which is very strange to us seeing. Kind of poorly detailed as far as the door panels go. They're just all one single beige piece. There is some detailing with these buttons and stuff here, but they should actually be, you know, like colored in, because the real car, of course, would have them as like colored in buttons. There is kind of a nice texture going on the door panels, so I will give them that. And the doors actually do lock in place, as you can see by this sort of latch-looking thing right there. The seats, as I mentioned, they are adjustable, which is cool to see. They have a nice overall shape and size to them, and a nice texture going on too. And of course, they do fold, as I already showed before. But yeah, they did an overall decent job with the seats, I would say. And here's that roll bar. Once again, kind of a cool extra feature on there. And on the real car, you can actually push a button on the inside of like the center console, and it will pop up if you want to have it like up while you're driving. Detailing on the dashboard, I would say, is decent for the most part. This is one of Maisto's earlier attempts at doing a wood grain look, and they actually do it pretty well, I would say. It looks like the wood grain you would actually see on the real car. The buttons that are like surrounding the wood grain and also on the center stack, I couldn't say the same in terms of detailing. They're not really that well detailed. They're in the right spots and everything, and they do at least mold the buttons somewhat accurately, but if they're not necessarily colored in or anything. I think they kind of make up for that by having a really kind of convincing looking wood grain texture in the area that surrounds them, so at least they do a good job in that sense. And you have a separately cast shifter here too. Could also use a little bit more detailing, but again, the model's from the early 1990s, so not all the detail is going to be there. There's kind of a better look at the texture you see on the seats, which looks very well done. The rest of the dashboard could use a little bit better detailing too. This should definitely be a better molded vent there. It wouldn't be beige to match the rest of the dashboard. At least they do a nice job of doing these center vents on here too. Decent looking steering wheel. Have a nice kind of texture on it, and you have the molded in 3-pointed star badge on there too. There it is, kind of turning with the front wheels. And they do include the gauge cluster sticker back there. Maisto does include these pedals down here too. Unlike their other older models, they're actually properly kind of mounted on there. They don't just float up from the floor or from like the footwell or anything. They're actually nicely separately cast plastic pieces. And you do have a little bit of detailing on the other side of the steering wheel here. All the buttons are there for the most part. They're just not necessarily colored in. But Maisto's earlier models, you saw this a lot. If this model were to be re-released today, you would see a lot better detailing in terms of like the buttons and whatnot. We'll take a look next at the undercarriage of the model. I would say it's actually pretty well detailed for the most part. You can see most of the engine components down here along with the whole steering system. You can even see the grille, like the light shining through the grille, which is a very cool touch. You have this kind of separate like black bracing going along on the bottom here. And all kinds of different paint colors too. Like this is kind of a gunmetal gray to match this plastic portion here. You have kind of a silver in the front here, the black plastic. And the exhaust system is done in chrome, but at least it sort of stands out in that sense. I wish they kind of hollowed out these rear pipes back here. I'm just now seeing that. But when the car is, right side up, you can't even see this exhaust pipes. I don't think that's really a big deal. And you even have the spot where the spare tire is. So overall, I would say this is a well-detailed undercarriage for an earlier Maisto model. Overall, for one of Maisto's earliest efforts, this is, I think, a good attempt at sort of a larger scaled model of the Mercedes R129 500 SL. But I mean, it could use some finer detailing here and there, but again, the model was made in the early 1990s, so some things are going to be absent in terms of details. And yeah, you do have some of the build quality issues, like that huge gap here and stuff. But Maisto, I think, makes up for these lack of details and the build quality with all the different features. Like you have that moving front wiper, you have the adjustable seat backs, the working sun visors, and the working roll bar, and the usable spare tire. I think this is one of Maisto's better models in terms of having extra features with it. But I think I would have definitely sacrificed a couple of the extra features for some more, fine detailing and everything. Although, that being said, the model does look great up on the shelf and everything. And if you're a fan of the Mercedes-Benz models from the 1980s or the 1990s, this definitely, I think, would be a good model to add to your collection for a good price. Hope this video was a helpful overview of the model, and feel free to comment down below with your thoughts on it. Thanks for watching.